Hi, and welcome back to the Repair Panda. Today we're working on a XPR 6550 J-split, so it's a VHF radio. And I just came across one with a bad channel selector, and I was like, hey, let's make a video of replacing a channel selector on this. So today we are working on replacing the channel selector of the XPR 6550. If you notice, if I rock this channel selector back and forth, you can see it jumping around between channels 2 and 3. That's not supposed to happen, but neither is a channel selector on a 6000 series supposed to be a infinite channel selector. So there's two issues wrong with this channel selector. One, if it gets bumped, specifically on channel 3, it jumps around. And two, it's an infinite channel selector. That's not supposed to be like that. So we're going to break this down, and we're going to change out this channel selector and hope the replacement fixes the issue. Volume pot's bad too. It doesn't turn off. All right. So we're doing a volume pot. As I mentioned in last week's video, volume pots are usually the number one issue that I come across on a lot of these 2-way radios. So, as you can see, it has a bad volume pot and channel selector. So we'll go ahead and crack this open, and we'll put a new housing on it too. So we'll toss that housing. All right. So as always, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 underneath the screen here. There you go. 5 and 6. So go ahead and take those off. All right, with the board taken off, we flip it around to the back. And yeah, you can really see, let's see, that the volume pot is going to the left on here. So we'll definitely have to replace that. So we take off the little orange plastic thingy. I don't even know what it's called. I just know it's like to help the channel selector stay in place. So the way I do it is I'll get some flux, get it underneath there, like so. Turn it around, take my soldering iron, and these 3 points right here are your anchor points. I just go ahead and load them up with brand new solder. That way, when we get the heat gun to it, the heat gun mixes the old, most likely unleaded solder with the new leaded solder, so it kind of melts a little bit quicker. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and stick it into our PCB board holder. PCB holder. Then I have 2 little heat shields or RF shields off of bad radios that I took and modified a little bit. That way I don't melt this button right here or the LED acrylic right there. So we just go ahead and cover all that. Cover that button. There we go. So now what we need to do is we need to heat up this general area from the top, not the back. So it takes about a minute or two to get this heated. And you always want to hold the channel selector up while you're doing this, because if the channel selector falls down, you have a better chance of those pads underneath on the back side of the board that you can't see right now coming off with the board, with the channel selector falling down. This is because just because it's loose through the anchors doesn't mean the board has heated through and melted the solder off the solder pads for the pins on the back. So essentially, we want to make sure that these pins right here that are on the bottom side of the board are heated enough so that we can rocket the channel selector back and forth before we drop it. That way we know that the solder pads are not going to rip off as well. Though there is still a chance that those pads are bad and they're just going to come off either way. But let's go ahead and get started on heating this board up and getting this channel selector taken off. And we're using my heat gun today. We have it set for 800 degrees right now at full airflow. So let's go ahead and start preheating this a little bit. Just by moving the heat gun back and forth. Once the board's a little bit heated, we'll start focusing on the area that we need it to be. And that's when we start holding the channel selector in place so it doesn't fall and possibly tear off those solder pads on the back. So now we're going to sit here until this has come loose. Luckily for you guys, I'm able to speed this up, so I'll see you in a few seconds. Alright, now that it's loose, you may not be able to see it in the video. I'm able to start rocking it. There we go. That's how I know all those pins are loose. So you just come up, take it down so slightly, and there we go. If you look in that channel selector compared to a new one, you'll notice that the last two pins here are missing. So that was what's causing our channel 3 to jump back and forth. And then the internals are actually broken because it's also an infinite channel selector right now when it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a 16 channel selector. So we'll go ahead and toss that. Carefully bring, oh, that one's a little stuck. That one's a little stuck. It happens. The shields get stuck from the solder that's on there. All you gotta do is heat it up. And it will come right off. There we go. A little bit of extra heat to it. Those shields come right off. So now we gotta clean up the board. I like to get all the old solder off. So we'll just desolder. While the board is hot, still pretty heated, go ahead and desolder this volume pot as well. This pin right here, it usually has a hard time desoldering. That's why I usually, if I do replace the channel selector, I usually do the volume pot too because the board is heated. So it makes it a little bit easier to get some of this older solder off. There we go. Of course, we'll heat this up. And that just has a cracked anchor point, so we'll get the anchor point nice and refreshed there. All you gotta do now is take your pliers, rock it back and forth, and there you go. And then we clean up this side. There we go. The holes are all cleaned. Now we still have two pins. The two pins over here to remove as well. We still have the two pins over here to remove. So once I'm done cleaning up the board here, we'll use our soldering to remove those pins. And then we'll desolder those two areas. There we go. Those pins are gone. Now we'll desolder those two areas. Make sure they're all nice and clean. There we go. There you go. Now we have our channel selector and volume pot removed. So let's go ahead and replace that channel selector first. And what you want to do is once you have it on the board, you want to make sure that the pins, these pins down here, these solder pins, the connector pins, are lined up as good as you can and get them in the middle of these solder pads down here. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 solder pads. So you want to try to get them in the middle the best you can. Hold it in the middle, and what I do is I take my soldering iron and I solder the middle anchor point, the bottom anchor point. Let it solidify. Then I come back and look. See, I kind of moved it to the left. So now that I only have one anchor point, I only have to heat up one point to realign it. Then I went too far to the other side. There we go. Good. They're mostly in the middle, not too far to one side or anything, which is always good. So now we'll get the other anchor points soldered up. And as always, I'll come back with my desoldering tip and just heat it up and let that heat go straight through the board to make sure that solder has gone through the board to make a solid connection on these anchor points. A little excess solder here. There we go. And good. One back up. Okay. Perfect. So now we flip it over. We're going to add some flux to the pins. Now you want as thin as a tip as possible for this. You're going to start from, I start from the far left, go to the far right. You get in there. You just get enough solder on there that covers the pin. Of course, that middle one's always the problem child, you know. There's always going to be one. And yes, you may actually start melting the plastic on the bottom, which is fine, as long as you don't go all the way through. And now we just come back through, heat the solder, and let gravity do the work to bring it down. You can slide your tip down as well. Make sure it gets down all the way down there. And there you go. We now have a new channel selector. So let's go ahead and throw on a new volume pot as well. Volume pots are similar. They may have a different design, but for the most part, for Motorola radios, they are all the same. They have 2 anchor points and roughly 5 pins that come through the through holes. All right. And like always, go back and just make sure that the solder melts all the way through. This is just reassurance for me. Is when I first started, I didn't do a very good job with making sure that the solder went through all the way. So, there you go. Now we go ahead and put our orange gasket back on. And we reattach it to the board. And then we're going to put it in a housing and go back into test mode to see if the channel selector is now fit. Give me 1 second. Let me go grab a housing and we'll give it a test. All right. So here's a brand new housing. Connect the flex to the GOB. The GOB is a generic option board. That option board, depending on if it is the enhanced option board or just the basic option board, depends on what it does. If it's just the basic option board, all it does is connect the side buttons here and the front keypad to the radio itself, along with the accessory port jack of the housing or the speaker flex, whatever you would like to call that. I call it the accessory port. You can attach accessories to it. All right. So we go ahead and turn it on. I'm going ahead and hit the middle button here 5 times. We are now in service mode. All right, here we go. So we're on channel 3, pushing it back and forth. As you can see, it's not jumping back to channel 2. So I do that from 1 to 8. Make sure it doesn't jump. And as you can see, it doesn't go past channel 1 to the right. It doesn't go past channel 16 when you turn to the left. So this is now a good functioning channel selector. Now let's go ahead and turn it off and see if it turns off. And it now turns off. All I have to do is do a bench test and run it on the Aeroflex. and this radio will be good for the customer. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments what kind of radio repair you'd like to see next. Have a good day.